Big splash day for Brad Holmes? Nope, that's what we expected.
You are Locked On Lions, your daily Detroit Lions podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
What's happening, everybody? Matt Derry with you. It's day one of NFL free agency, March 11th, the tampering period or illegal tampering period or legal tampering period or what do you want to call it? Starting today, we got a full slate here on Locked On Lions on the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. Again, Matt Derry with you, host here of Locked On Lions, been with you since 2016. Thanks for making us your first listen and checking us out wherever you get your podcast. That includes on our Locked On Lions YouTube channel. Coming up on the show today, Lions lose a guard, Lions keep a guard. Plenty of names still available, but a lot of the big names not coming to Detroit. We'll tell you all about that coming up. We got to get into what the Packers are doing today. Plenty on the schedule on this Monday edition of Locked On Lions, which is brought to you by FanDuel. Make every moment more. Right now, new customers get $200 in bonus bets with any winning $5 bet. That's $200 if your bet wins. Visit FanDuel.com/LockedOn to get started. You know, it's interesting as I look at some of my notes here, and I want to make sure I know what I'm doing. It's interesting. Day one has been a frenzy. All right. A lot of moves by a lot of teams. It seems like the Tennessee Titans are just spending a ton of money. Green Bay Packers saying goodbye to Aaron Jones, only then to give Josh Jacobs $12 million a year, 4 years, $48 million for the now former Raiders running back, I think is ridiculous. But hey, the Packers feeling some heat. They've won the division the last 2 years. They see what the Lions are doing. Then Green Bay goes out and gives Xavier McKinney, a pretty darn good safety from the Giants, 4 years, $68 million, $17 million per year. Christian Wilkins, who a lot of people thought could be a Lion, gets $22 million a year from the Las Vegas Raiders to be their anchor as a defensive tackle. A lot of talk about a Brian Burns trade coming between Carolina and the Giants. Landon Dickerson just got $21 million a year from the Rams. So it has been a frenzy. But what the Detroit Lions are doing is exactly what most of us thought. And that is GM Brad Holmes said it weeks ago. We're not going to win in March. We don't care about winning in March. We care about winning in December and January. All right? A lot of teams spending a lot of money. Kirk Cousins, $45 million a year to go to the Falcons. That actually is a pretty good signing. If you're Atlanta, you've got your quarterback. By the way, what's up with Hall of Fields? I thought there'd be a bidding war for him. No, nobody wants it. But what the Lions are doing is calculated. What the Lions are doing is being safe. And they're going to get some good football players, but not at the prices that some of these teams are spending. All right, that's just the bottom line. Lions may end up getting some good players. DJ Reader, according to Josina Anderson, is somebody that the Lions are very interested in. So are the Titans. Maybe the Bengals to bring him back. The nose tackle is 29 years old, 6'3", 335. You put him next to Aleem McNeil, those two could do some damage. DJ Reader is a good football player. Darius Williams, the cornerback from the Jaguars, is still out there. We got more names. You know, Sheldon Rankins, D tackle, still out there. So there's good Daniil Hunter. There's good players still available. But as far as once we hit noon, do the Lions immediately strike it big and spend on Christian Wilkins and spend on this player or that player? No. They've both mostly kept their guns in their holsters for right now. First move, though, that the Lions did make was keeping Graham Glasgow. How do you not like this move? 3 years at a reported $20 million for Glasgow. So you're going to pay him about $6.5 million a year. You get him for 3 more years. He's 31. And PFF last year had Graham Glasgow, the Lions right guard, ranked as the 8th highest rated guard in the entire league. Jonah Jackson's gone. We'll get into that in a second. He got $17 million a year. But you want to keep your good players around. You want to keep guys that are leaders and veterans around. You can't go just young. The Lions are a pretty young team for a team that made the NFC Championship game. But last year we saw it. When Graham Glasgow was at right guard and Ragnow was at center and Penei Sewell was at right tackle, the Lions had a formidable right side to the middle of the offensive line. You got to keep Graham Glasgow. And they did. And it's real cheap. It's like David Montgomery money from last year. 3 at 18 for Monty, 3 at 20 for Glasgow. So he stays around. Extremely important re-signing for this team. You got to have depth. You got to bring back guys that can play. He wanted to be here, signed on a 1-year, $4.5 million deal in the offseason, kind of a prove-it deal after the Broncos let him go last year. All he did was move over to center when they had to, did a good job, played a heck of a right guard, and now he stays. So you got to love that. All right. That is something that is very, very important. All right. For the Lions. But Jonah Jackson, like I said before, is now gone. And this is not a surprise. Doesn't come to a surprise to anybody. And give credit to really Justin Rogers from the Detroit News and Dave Burkett of the Free Press both put this out there. That the Lions weren't going to be huge players on day one, and they weren't going to get reckless with their spending. Lions came into today with about $34 million of cap space. And again, they might have want to hold on to some of that for later on towards training camp like they did with Teddy Bridgewater. They got to pay their rookies. Maybe they make some sort of trade where they acquire draft picks. You never know. They're not out of the L'Jarius Sneed sweepstakes either, so they might be waiting on Sneed. That's a possibility. But Jonah Jackson's somebody that I think the Lions definitely valued and wanted to keep, but not at the money that he got. Jonah Jackson, Lions left guard, is leaving and reuniting with Matthew Stafford. He's going to the Rams for 3 years and $51 million. Jonah Jackson, $17 million a year. Remember, last 2 years, his numbers have regressed. If you go by PFF, he was a Pro Bowler a couple of years ago, hasn't played as well. Our buddy John Ledyard, formerly of Locked On, put out on Twitter today that he watched Jackson's tape, and this is not a guy he thinks is worth $17 million a year. And if the Lions can get Graham Glasgow for 6.5, they're not going to spend 17 on the other guard. Now, the Rams kept Kevin Dotson and went out and got Jackson. They spent, I believe it was 16 million for Dotson, 17 million for Jackson. So they spent $35 million to rebuild their guards. I think the Lions feel like we can get a guard at 29. We can maybe get a guard in free agency once some of the bigger names are scooped up. And that's the philosophy that Brad Holmes is going with right now, which, does not surprise me in the least bit. But Jonah Jackson was extremely good, extremely serviceable. You always want to keep the continuity together along that offensive line. But at that price, no. That's too rich for the Lions. You're not spending $17 million on Graham Glasgow, $17 million a year on Jonah Jackson when you've got to re-up Amon-Ra St. Brown. You're going to be spending some money soon on Jared Goff. You got to do something about Taylor Decker's contract. Penei Sewell's going to be up soon. Aleem McNeil is up after this year. Those are good football players. You cannot allot $17 million for a guard. Not where the Lions are right now. And so Jonah Jackson, while he's really, really excellent, and give the Rams credit, they went out and got their guy, that's just too much for the Lions. And again, we'll see where some of this money is going to end up and where it's going to go. I'm recording right now at 5:48. I'm assuming if I refresh my Twitter live on the air, maybe I'd miss something. But bottom line is the Lions are going to be a little bit more responsible than some of these other teams. You never know. Maybe they want to break the bank for Eric Armstead, who's available. We'll see. But Jonah Jackson, $17 million a year? No, I never thought the Lions would pay that. Not for him, at least. And they didn't. All right, coming up next, some more big names are moving on. Who else is left for the Lions to look at? And this Jared Goff contract is going to be interesting because of what Cousins got. All of that right now. Coming up on a Monday edition of Locked On Lions. Locked On Lions brought to you by eBay Motors. Today, passion, drive, and patience. What brings home the winning trophy is also what keeps your ride or die alive. eBay Motors has everything you need to maintain your vehicle and level it up to peak performance. From superchargers to roof racks, exhaust kits, LED headlights, and more, whether you're into speed, power, or style, eBay Motors has got you covered. With over 122 million parts for your number one ride or die, you'll always find exactly what you're looking for. And with eBay Guaranteed Fit, your part is guaranteed to fit your ride every time or your money back. With all the parts you need at the prices you want, it's easy to turn your car into the MVP and bring home that win, because with eBay Motors, you're burning rubber, not cash. Keep your ride or die alive at ebaymotors.com. That's ebaymotors.com. Eligible items only. Exclusions apply. eBay Guaranteed Fit, only available to U.S. customers. Monday edition of Locked On Lions. Legal tampering period is underway. Was underway today at noon. The official league year begins on Wednesday. Seriously, I'm going to do this right now, live on the air here. I'm going to literally type it in and just make sure that while I'm talking and while I'm recording, that I'm not missing anything. David Bakhtiari, we saw. Lions, one of 3 teams interested in DJ Reader. Yeah, the Vikings spending a lot of money. We saw that. Way too much money to get Grenard from the Texans, I thought. All right, I'm not missing anything. You never know. You got to be careful. When am I supposed to do this? I do the podcast every day around 5 o'clock. You just never know, how that's going to go. If I record at 3, do I miss something? Do I wait and record at 7? You guys need your content. You need your Locked On Lions. And here we are, closing in on 6 o'clock on the first day of free agency. All right, so we talked about Graham Glasgow staying. We talked about Jonah Jackson leaving. Again, we'll see if the Lions latch on to any offensive guards or anybody that is still out there as free agency continues on. All right, there's some good ones available. If not, you got to figure that the Lions at 29 are going to be drafting an offensive lineman. BB from Kansas State, the kid from BYU, Penei Sewell's cousin. Plenty of good players that could be available at number 29. Again, the guard market is crazy. What about the running back market today? DeAndre Swift, the former Lion, going to come back to the NFC North. He got $8 million a year. Now, DeAndre Swift, Pro Bowl player last year for the Eagles, running behind the best offensive line in football. I want to see DeAndre Swift at Soldier Field on that slippery turf. No, not the slippery wizard, Anthony Lima, but the slippery turf in Chicago, running behind that Bears offensive line. But DeAndre Swift, 3 years at $24 million. Tony Pollard, 3 years, $24 million with Tennessee. What are the Titans doing? Why is Josh Jacobs getting $12 million a year and getting 4 years? The Lions getting David Montgomery last year for 3 years and $6 million per was an absolute steal. Do you trust DeAndre Swift not in a contract year? Playing at Soldier Field? I see what the Bears are doing. They need a running back. I get that. Man, they scooped him up early. I think it's an overpay. I don't think you pay running backs in this day and age. The Montgomery deal, I thought, was a good one for the Lions. 3 years, plenty of. You're not committing too long. You're getting a guy that is solid, and you only spent $6 million per season. And the Bears spent more on DeAndre Swift. Okay. There's so many ways I want to go here. I understand where the fans are when it comes to the Lions. When you are at a point where this organization was this past year, and you are 30 minutes from the Super Bowl, it is very easy to look up and go, man, there are some big names and there are some really good players that are available in free agency, and you got to break the bank. I really believe that the Lions are having conversations with the Chiefs about L'Jarius Sneed and figure if we're going to spend money, we're going to pay $19, $20 million a year on a player, it's going to be a young guy like Sneed at a position that the Lions know we need a number one, as I drop my phone, we need a number one lockdown cornerback. We need a winning player, guy that's won 2 Super Bowls the last 2 years. And I think if Detroit and Brad Holmes are going to pay the freight for a big name. It's going to be something like that. Now, again, you got to make a trade to get him. But I see Detroit doing something like that as opposed to, and I would have loved Christian Wilkins to do what the Raiders did and spent, 4 at 110 or whatever it was to get Wilkins, which is nuts. The guy's a dominant player. I get that. He's one of the best D tackles in the league. $25 million a year. I said 21 earlier. 25 million a year for Christian Wilkins. That's a lot of money. A lot of scratch. A lot of money. As far as the Kirk Cousins situation, I want to get to some names for the Lions that are still available, but I want to do this first. Kirk Cousins contract. Let's talk about this for a second. First of all, I don't know who's quarterbacking in Minnesota. If you were figuring or thinking about a stopgap situation like a Ryan Tannehill, that's possible. I saw a Minshew mania. Gardner Minshew's going to the Raiders. The Bears aren't trading Justin Fields within the division. But you wonder about what the Vikings are going to do. Minnesota said today, as Cousins signed a 4-year deal for $45 million a year, 4 years, $180 with the Falcons, that they gave their best effort to try to keep Kirk Cousins, but we love him. He's great. We wish him well in Atlanta. He's going to the Falcons. It's a nice pickup for the Falcons. Kirk Cousins, while up there in age, in his mid-30s, is really still a solid number one quarterback. And this league, especially in that division, the NFC South, where the quarterback play is mid, no one was real impressed with Bryce Young. Derek Carr, completely overpaid. Baker Mayfield just got 3 and 100 from the Bucs, but he could go right back to being the Baker of old next year. But Kirk Cousins getting $45 million a year now makes you think about what the market looks like for Jared Goff. Is that the kind of deal that number 16 is going to want to remain in Detroit? I talked to a source today that said Jared Goff would be willing. This is just one source, not anybody that I think is 100% correct. I talked to somebody that knows Goff that said maybe Jared Goff goes about his contract like Tom Brady does and does 1 and 2 year deals and doesn't necessarily need to break the bank. As long as they are putting money around him, Goff might not want 4 at 180 like Kirk Cousins got. Right? All of these guys, Cousins, Matt Stafford, all these guys at one point were all the highest paid quarterback in the league. Heck, Deshaun Watson was at one point when the Browns owner, Jimmy Haslam, stupidly broke the bank, then gave him $230 million guaranteed. Russell Wilson is signing for like the minimum on a 1-year deal with Pittsburgh. What are the Steelers doing, by the way? That poor Kenny Pickett, guy gets drafted in the first round, has a lousy offensive coordinator the last 2 years in Matt Canada, and now he's got to compete with Russell Wilson, who's a total distraction, and a declining player. But anyway, I don't know if necessarily Jared Goff is going to want what Cousins wants. But if you want to do a comparison, yes, Goff and Cousins are extremely comparable. I would take Jared Goff a little bit over Kirk Cousins right now. But is Goff's agent calling up Brad Holmes and saying, Kirk got 4 at 180? We want 4 at 190. We want 4 at 185. The Lions are going to have to do it. What's the B plan or the C plan? Hendon Hooker? No, the Lions aren't trading for Justin Fields. Jared Goff is going to be the quarterback next year and could be franchise tagged the year after that if they can't come up with a contract. Now, all these franchise tag guys this year seem to agree to terms. Michael Pittman today was the latest with the Colts at 3 years and $70 million. So we'll take a look at that. But I think Jared Goff's better than Kirk Cousins and has played better the last couple of years. Of course, Cousins was hurt this year. So maybe a 4 at 185, a 4 at 190 is what Goff is looking for. Would you do that? I'll be interested in reading some of your comments on YouTube and on our Twitter page at Derry Speaks, at Locked On Lions on Twitter, the Matt Derry Facebook fan page as well. By the way, we're about 10,500 subscribers on our Locked On Lions YouTube channel. So thanks to all of you, our everydayers who check us out each and every day, again, right here on Locked On Lions. All right, some names that are still available at the time of this recording that could be Detroit Lions. We will get into that coming up next, right here on day one of this free agency frenzy. Folks, we told you earlier about our friends at FanDuel. FanDuel, say goodbye to busted brackets because FanDuel lets you bet on every game of the tournament. Yes, we got conference tournaments this week. We got the NCAA tournament starting next week. Whether you're betting on a big upset or a 1 seed, it's time to go dancing on America's #1 sportsbook, FanDuel. Right now, new customers get $200 in bonus bets if your first $5 bet wins. That's $200 to use on point spreads, money lines. You can even pick who's going to win it all at FanDuel. So visit FanDuel.com/lockedon. That's FanDuel.com/LOCKEDON and bet on college hoops until they cut down the nets. By the way, speaking of college basketball, real fast, as we did that FanDuel read, did anybody watch the Michigan basketball game yesterday? How do you bring this coach back when the team just quits? They just stopped trying. And it wasn't just yesterday against Nebraska. I've seen it numerous times. I know he's a Michigan man and he's a Fab Five legend, but my God, they suck. It's depressing. Michigan football, like they play hard every snap of every down. Like the basketball team just rolls over like dogs. It's absolutely crazy. All right. Who's left? Who do I think could be a fit for the Lions? Chidobe Awuzie was a cornerback that I thought Awuzie was a guy from the Bengals that I thought would be a Lion and a good chance as a corner. Signs with Tennessee, gets a 3-year deal. We told you about the guys that are going to be off the board here. On the board still, and I still think he's going to be a Lion, is former Jaguars cornerback Darius Williams. Cap casualty, knows Ray Agnew and Brad Holmes from the Rams, knows Deshae Townsend, Lions' new secondary coach from the Jags. I still think that's somebody that the Lions will snag this week. DJ Reader, we mentioned, 29 years old, big nose tackle, could put him next to Aleem McNeil. Lions are one of 3 teams reportedly in the mix for Reader, along with Houston, Tennessee, Houston, Cincinnati, and the Lions, I believe. Danielle Hunter is interesting. Certainly getting up there in age, but still a high-impact player, still available. All right. The Vikings, maybe the best pass rusher the Vikings have ever had. They've had good ones, John Randall and Everson Griffin and others. But Danielle Hunter is available. Zadarius Smith is also available, former Viking and Brown edge rusher. I mentioned Sheldon Rankins before, the D tackle, big-bodied guy. Josh Uche, the former Michigan Wolverine, who's not going to be returning to the New England Patriots. Brett Whitefield, our buddy from Fantasy Points, thought Uche would be a great fit for the Lions. And as far as cornerbacks go, I mean, Tre'Davious White is available after the Bills let him go. There's so many corners. But what I think would be really cool is bringing in a veteran like Stephon Gilmore and his brother Steven, of course, who was on the active roster for the Lions all year. That'd be kind of cool to have, the older Gilmore and the younger Gilmore on the Lions. So we shall see. So that is where things are right now with the Lions. I'm going to want to look real fast at one thing this is what we have to do. I hate having to type as we're doing the show. But I need to. All right, here we go. See, this is live and direct. The Lions have an edge rusher. Mike Garafolo from NFL Network reports, along with Rap Sheet, former Viking, former Saint defensive end, Marcus Davenport is getting a 1-year deal from the Lions. Marcus Davenport coming to Detroit. They need an edge rusher. This was a guy that, of course, last year was with the Vikings. That's a Brad Holmes signing, isn't it? 1-year deal, prove it deal. Not a bad contract. There you go. Marcus Davenport is now a Lion. Injuries have been an issue for him going back to New Orleans and Minnesota. He just never seems to be on the field enough, but he's on a 1-year deal. All right. Was drafted by the Saints. Aaron Glenn was there at the time. So was Dan Campbell. He was number 14th pick, the 14th overall pick in the 2018 draft. So there you go. I love it. 1-year deal. Edge rusher, when healthy, can play. Is going to be playing for big money and has ties to the Lions coaching staff. Former teammate of Alex Anzalone, played for Aaron Glenn and Dan Campbell. Marcus Davenport is a Lion. Breaking news as we are doing the show. That's a good deal. Don't see the money yet, but it's got to be, you got to figure, $4 million, $5 million. The Emmanuel Mosley deal, by the way, the other day, I was thinking he was getting $3 or $4 million. Only got like 1 year and $2 million. So smart move. Marcus Davenport, according to Mike Garafolo and the rap sheet, 1 year deal with the Lions. I'm going to refresh to see if the money comes through before we sign off here. So there you go. Again, it's always just been about health for him. And we'll talk a little bit more about that tomorrow right here on Locked On Lions. But we know the Lions need edge rushers. You know they're going to sign a corner or two. So Davenport, when healthy, can get to the quarterback. Tall guy. Knocks passes down as well. The issue just with him, again, is just being on the field. So it's going to be up to the Lions training staff to get him up and running. But 1 year deal, I like it. I like that move a lot. Typical Brad Holmes type signing. Marcus Davenport is your newest Detroit Lion. More on that tomorrow. We'll see what else is cooking with the Lions in free agency. On day one, we appreciate you checking us out wherever you get your podcasts, right here on Locked On Lions on this, a Monday edition.